is an exhibition. Has nothing to do with bird hunting. In other words, if you a lot of times you wouldn't go get a good field trial dog to go bird hunting over. Of course, I do bird hunt them, but that's no sign that that's the kind that most people would prefer. But you take a good field trial dog that's got some age on him, you can hunt him just like you can any other dog. But you got to please these judges in other words, these dogs got to do a certain thing, and you have to pick a certain type of dog that is going to look good to please him, and you got to leave as much class in him as you can to please the judge. You go out there and train hard, and you stomp him around, and you go into flush, and his tail drops down between his legs. He's not going to be very impressed. You might think it's pretty good, but he's not. And so these are the things that field trial is an exhibition. In other words, match my dog against yours. We'll let the judges look at them, and when it's over, we'll make a decision. And that's what it's all about.
Okay, but back to what I was asking. I mean, you're putting a check collar on him just to handle the dog set for the first maybe a month, or maybe never turn him off it. But
no, what I'm saying that is, when I say I may never turn him off of it, till he shows me that he's ready for me to drop this rope and let him do something.
Okay, but what I'm trying to get, what's the point of that collar with the spikes?
The collar this year is to keep him from punishing you. What kind of dogs you have?
Setters.
You got setters? You ever have any of them that put a rope on him and he'll just drag you down there and he's just passing and jerking and pulling? He just pulls himself down, he chokes himself down, he can't hardly breathe. You ever have anything like that?
Not too many.
You haven't put a rope on him, huh?
No, I can't cart him around. I mean, you're putting that on.
This on here is to make the dog respect you, not to punish the dog. You know, you don't want to punish a dog. You don't want to punish a dog before he knows what you're doing. But this is something you put on him to keep him from dragging you around.
Okay.
That's all it's for. If it's too severe, I've got 3 or 4 of these things. I cut one of these off where there's hardly anything there. I've got one that has no studs in it at all, and I use that on some dogs. If he's a real sensitive dog, I put that on him. And you'll learn that right away as quick as you got your dog, because if you got your dog and he won't go up against this thing and pull and kind of hunt that way, and every time it touches him while he's jumping back like this, you know it's not the right collar. Just like a bridle bit on a horse, it's too severe. So you get you another collar you put on him, and when you want him to go out there and hunt on the end of a rope, you know, you don't want him just heeling right by your side. If you get too rough on him, he won't even go out there on the end of the rope. So that's the reason that you have different type of collars for different kind of dogs.
Okay.
Like I was explaining about the greatest thing that happened was when they made that variable collar. I live there by Tucson. I've been trying to get them to do that for 20 years, and they wouldn't do it. Finally, they did. In other words, the variable collar is very important because some dogs take very little electricity, and other dogs takes a lot of electricity. And I don't know why they do that. I don't know why one dog takes more electricity than other. I guess it's pain level in the dog. Some is different than others. That's the only thing I can say. But some dogs, you use that collar too much on him, and he'll react to it right quick. He's getting the wrong message. The dog can go out where there's a lot of game if he's not trained proper, and he's making more mistakes than you can correct. You understand? It's better when the time comes to take him out of that situation and teach him what you want him to do than to let him run around here. You are, the day you're working him, tomorrow he's going out there and chasing birds. Next 2 weeks from now you work him again, and then you take him out and he chases more birds. The dog he's never really trained. In other words, and you keep that up, and directly you say, well, he's smart. He knows I can't get to him. He knows this and he knows that. He will. He'll figure that out. The best thing to do is, when the time comes, is to take that situation away from him and teach him what you want to do. If you can't get him to do it here, he ain't going to do it after.
Will you expand on that a little bit, Bill? In other words, let's say I've got a really good young puppy that's 3 or 4 months old, and I've taken him out in the pasture, and he looks like he's got some promise. What do I do with him now? Do I take him out and teach him to get out and run and be independent until he's 18 months or 12 months of age?
About training 3 months old.
But then when you get to that point, when you decide that they've had enough of that run and you start to break them, then you stick with the breaking until they're really trustworthy enough that you can take them off the collar. Don't mix it up, in other words.
Don't mix it up, taking him out there and running him, letting him make mistakes on him. Because if you do, you're just creating yourself more problems. You want to get where you can control those mistakes. What I do, I take them over there in Oklahoma, and dogs will run off on me, and I'll put these rubber bungee straps on him. Put 6 on him. If that's not enough, I'll put 12 on him. I get him where I can kind of keep up with him with a horse. Put the electric collar on, and we go cross country. Lots of birds. And the shinnery patches, what they call shinnery patches, are about this high. Some of them up to this high, and they grow in clumps. They'll be anywhere from 300 yards to a quarter mile apart. Now you got the dog under control. You can be there with him. And I put that on to handicap him so I can keep up with him. If I can't keep up with him, he goes over 2 or 3 ridges from me and chases birds, I'm losing ground. You see what I mean? So if I can't get him to do it here with me, he's not going to go over there and do it. You understand what I'm talking about? So if you don't break him, get him to know what you want to do, and keep him under a controlled environment, you're losing ground in the first place. Anybody else got a question?
What would you do to break an older dog? Somebody brought you a dog that's say 6 years old.
Just exactly like I would with his young dog. Put him on this rope here, teach him his name, teach him to whoa, teach him to point, and stand on birds, same deal. I don't know no other way without you staying like this guy. If you got enough wild birds out here in the situation, and you got a horse, you can take him out there, which this used to be the old way, and you take him out there, and when he chases up birds, you go running at him on a horse, and you head him off, whoa, and then you get off and choke him all the way back to where he was. Down, and you fall back on the horse, and you go at it again. That's a hard way. There's the easier way. This thing here is the easy way.
Would your success rate be less with an older dog than it would, say, a dog that's a year old?
Well, it's according to what's been done with him. Sometimes you take a 3 or 4 year old dog, and he'll respond quicker to training if nobody's messed with him. You take him out and start teaching him, and he's old enough he can comprehend things.
Well, this is a self-hunter. This is kind of what I'm getting.
He's a self-hunter.
Yeah, a dog that's been trained to whoa and come and all that, and then has been allowed to hunt for several years just to run loose.
Well,
And come back and pick up where you left off.
sure.
Better off to forget. That's kind of what it is.
You're losing a lot of time because you've lost 2 or 3 years that the dog should have been already broke. But that ain't no sign you can't break him. Now, if he's spoiled or somebody kicked him around and he won't like birds or something, then you may have to go back and do some things, to get him doing that and be a lot harder job to do. But this thing right here is the greatest thing in the world. It's like a bridle on a horse. And this is what it's all about. Nobody wants to spend the time on this thing here because that's a monotonous job. They'll say, well, let's turn him loose today and see if he'll point, you know what I mean? And they've done this 3 times, you know what I mean? Where I've done it for 6 weeks or 2 months. But when I get ready, the dog knows what I want him to do. And I got the hammer on him then. I can pretty well tell you what.
Slow the dogs down.
Take those rubber bungee straps that you tie stuff down with.
Bill's got them there.
Right here.
That's your handicap.
One thing about these things now, I had a dog that got hung up. You take these things here, and if you're going to use them right around a lot of fences, either tape these things here or have somebody spot weld them. Because they can jump through a fence. I had this to happen. And the dog hung in the fence and stayed there all night. I found him the next day. But these things here are great. Now, I like them a little longer than this one here. Because I like for them to come back past their back feet. In other words, where to whip them back legs. And that's the greatest thing in the world for slowing a dog down. And I'll put just as many on him as it takes. I have these things made up, and I'll snap one into the other, and sometimes I'll have 3 of them on there. But like I say, that's to keep the dog under control, to where you can keep up with him. And these are controlled situations. That's what you got to do. You got to control the dog. When you get him to a certain point, and he don't get smart enough, he says, I can run over here and do this, and I can run over and do that, as long as I'm out of his way, and he can't do nothing about it because he can't catch me. You see what I mean? So you have to use these things I took a dog to Oklahoma. This dog was a nice dog, and it wasn't stupid, you know. But in other words, I had to have some way to control it. If you didn't, you just turned her loose and she run off. When this guy came to watch her run before he bought her, he said, "Oh, I don't see the dog." And I said, "Yeah, going over that hill." And he said, "What hill?" I said, I can't. I said, "The second hill." He said, "Well, she ain't gonna come back." I said, "Yes, she'll be back." In about 5 minutes, while we seen her roll up over top of one of them hills, seen me, and then just fade away, you know. And that shows you that the dog did understand what I wanted to do. I didn't want
Twice a day.
It's according to the dog, you know. Some dogs you can't do that with. In other words, they get sour on you. If you're working dogs and you know each dog after you worked them a little while, and you know you can tell. You know, some dogs you're better off working every third day. Some dogs, old tough dogs, you know, you might want to work him every day up to a certain point, and then you start backing off. In other words, they tell you when you work him, you say, well, he's getting disgusted with this thing, you know what I mean? And he doesn't quite look right. But I have better luck, like I say, by working in an environment where there's birds out there. In other words, even teaching them to stand, teaching them to whoa and everything.
So working in the backyard where they're not birds and where everything,
That's a bad scene.
that's a bad place.
In other words, I've never seen a dog that you could stand around and he'd stand up and look pretty and everything
In the backyard, yeah.
in the backyard.
Amen.
How long is sessions?
What?
How long is sessions are you working when you're doing check boards? I know.
When I go out here to work dogs, out here, I never let a dog point over 2 or 3 birds a day. In other words, that's a plenty. Maybe even 1 or 2. Maybe even let him back another dog, time to let him point 1 bird. That's enough. And all the time I'm out there, I'm doing this wooing, walking around and flushing, messing around with him. See, here, come here, over here. Make him go with me. All that's done out there, and 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
I've seen her over
I like
6 feet.
I like to check court not over 15 feet long, because like I say, this is like a bridle rein. If you don't have somebody in control and the dog's out you under 40 feet and he's running in all directions out there and everything, you have no control over it. Fact of it, if he was to run onto a bird, you couldn't even stop him, because if you had 40 foot of rope out or 30 feet and you come by a bird and he smell it over there, he can whirl this way and catch the thing before you can take up the rope to keep him from catching. So this thing is, when you're leading him, you've got him up here, and this is a controlled situation. This rope is like a bridle rein. Anytime you got this dog on there, you got some control of it. And that's very important. Yeah, you teach him to heel. Teach him to heel, just like this. Just basic heeling, there's nothing to that. I do something that I learned here. I used to do everything. I'll tell you about this. About a dog laying down on point. Some dogs actually try to hide. Some dogs it's through intimidation. But it's been 12, 15 years ago. I'd done everything that people do. People send me dogs that they was laying down on point, doing all these things. And I'd build things, put around them, you know, and set buckets with nails in them under them, and I'd carry them in a saddlebag.